Hey everybody, Andy Kvernen here with another Cornerstone Connection Daily Devotional. I don't know about you, but for me, I'm fairly competitive by nature. I've always been that way. I've always wanted to win. And I remember when I was a kid, my brother and I would have these epic competitions, whether it's playing basketball in the driveway or football in the backyard or simply playing Monopoly in one of our bedrooms. We wanted to beat each other, and there was no holding back. We were going to go for it no matter what. I love to win. And that's shown up in my adult life, whether it's watching my kids play sports, whether it's playing around a golf like I did a couple of weeks ago with my dad and my brother and one of my sons. I like to win in whatever I do. And that's all fine and good, perhaps, except when it shows up in a ministry context, except when it shows up in my spiritual life. Because if I'm not careful, I can all of a sudden start to think that I'm in competition with somebody else for doing the work of God. And that's not good. That's messed up. and so I might be prone to look at another church and say, wow, they're doing these great things. We got to get after it so we can get ahead and so that we can, win in whatever we're doing. And I'm reminded as I read through the Gospel of Mark that Jesus had no place for competition in his kingdom. It wasn't about that. Now the disciples, they tended to think otherwise. And we come to this place in Mark chapter 9 where the disciples are walking along and they're coming to Capernaum. And it says in Mark 9:33, and they start having this argument. And here's what the argument is. Mark 9:33, they came to Capernaum, and when he was in the house, he asked them, what were you arguing about on the road? Implying that they were arguing on the way to Capernaum. But they kept quiet because on the way, they had argued about who was the greatest. I love that. They kept quiet. They knew, ooh, Jesus isn't going to like this. They knew enough about Jesus to know they probably shouldn't have been arguing in this way. So they kept quiet. They didn't want to tell him that they had been arguing about who had been the greatest. But of course, Jesus is Jesus, and he already knows. And so sitting down, Jesus called the 12, and he said, if anyone wants to be first, he must be the very last and the servant of all. If anyone wants to be first, he must be the very last and the servant of all. Friends, in God's kingdom, to win is actually counterintuitive. To be first is to be last, and to be last, to lose, is to be first. In fact, in the book of Galatians, chapter 2, verse 20, Paul talks about taking up our cross daily and following Jesus. To win in God's economy is to lose our lives for the sake of others and for his sake. And Jesus reflects that here. He says, if anyone wants to be first, he must be the very last and the servant of all. And as if the disciples couldn't understand that, then this happens. It says in verse 36, he took a little child and had him stand among them. Taking him in his arms, he said to them, whoever welcomes one of these little children in my name welcomes me. And whoever welcomes me does not welcome me, but the one who sent me. Children in the time of the New Testament were lower class. They were considered less than. Nobody had time for children, especially not a man, not a person who was out there in the marketplace trying to lead and be out ahead of his family spiritually and all these things. Children were thought of as kind of less than second-class citizens. Jesus grabs one in his arms and he says, hey, you want to know what being last looks like? It means valuing the things that I value. It means valuing the least of these. These children, they matter to God. And when you serve one of them, guess what? You serve me. Friends, I don't know about you. Maybe you struggle with a competitive spirit. Maybe you sometimes wish that you were in a different place than you were, and you covet where your neighbor's at, where the other church is at, the other organization. Let me challenge you. In God's economy, when you serve, you win. And let's serve him together today. Let's serve in the name of Jesus. God bless you, friends. And Lord willing, we'll see you again on the Cornerstone Connection.